Alright, in this video we're going to look at the components we need to build to create our app. So, firstly, if you haven't been using React at all before, you should know that about everything you do in React is a component. And what is a component? Yeah, I like to see it as a piece of a puzzle. And the whole puzzle is the app. So you're using these pieces to create the whole picture, the bigger picture, and the bigger picture is the app. So a component is, an isolated piece of code that you can reuse somewhere in your application. And we're going to do a lot of these components in this course, and we're going to learn how to create them and how to render them out and everything like this. So, but I can just quickly show you what's the difference when rendering out a DOM element versus a React element. So when you do a DOM element in HTML, you just write, let's say we have a div, and this is a cool div. Yeah, like this you do it in HTML, like a regular div, and you show it like this. If you have a React component, we do it like that. And as you can see, there's no big difference. The biggest difference is the first letter in the tag is a capital letter. It's important because React knows when we use a capital letter, React knows that this is a React component and not a DOM element. So this is how we write when we render out our React components. So, what components do we need in our app to create it to look like this? We start off by the home page, and later on in the course we're going to do the individual page for the movies. So, but for now we're just doing the home page. So, if you look at it, you clearly have one component at the top. It's the header. It's going to be its own component. Then we have some kind of a hero image, and with text and a background image. So this is a component. We have a search bar, its own component. We have a grid and a thumb for the movies. So the grid is one component, and each of these thumbs are a component. We also have a load more button that is going to be its own component. And we have, I don't see it. Where is it? There it is, a loading spinner also. That is going to be its own component. So this is what we need to make it look like this and create our home part of the application. So if we go back and look at our folder, the folder of our starter files that you have downloaded, and that's going to be our app folder. So if you look at it, you have one folder that's called node modules. That is the modules we installed when we wrote npm install in our terminal. So you don't have to care about this. Everything's working fine and we don't have to do anything there. We have a public folder, and there's also a folder inside that folder that's called images. And these are the images that we use in the app. It's one image we show when there's no thumbnail to fetch for the movie. We also have the logo, and we have the TMDB logo to show that we're fetching the data from them. There's an index.html file that I already pre-made this. I just import a Google font, and I'm importing the CSS for the font awesome that we're going to use. The one thing you should know is there's one div in here that's called root. In the root div, we're rendering out our app, and we do that from the index.js file. So the index.js file has a React DOM.render function. And this function, we specify what we want to render and where we want to render it. We want to render it in the root, and what we're rendering right now is the start here just. We're going to change this later and render out our app there instead. So this is how it works, but you don't have to care about the public folder either. It's everything done. Everything's done in there. And we have a couple of other folders here. We have the app folder that is going to be the start component for our app. And then we have a home and a movie folder. These are obviously the home page, and the movie is the individual movie page. And you also see that there's some CSS files in here. I pre-made them all for you for all components because I think this is a React course. We don't have to do that much CSS. So I made them for you. If you want to change anything there, feel free to do it. one thing I can tell you about CSS in React is that there's different way on how you use and import your CSS files in React. I'm using the way when you create like an individual CSS for each component and import them in the component. You could also have done in the index.html file, import it like a big CSS file with all the code in the head as you usually do in a regular HTML document. And there's also a third way that's called CSS modules. This involves some advanced stuff where you have to modify the create React app files. So I won't cover it in this tutorial. So you have to look it up yourself on the internet if you want to know more about it. Just Google CSS modules React and you can read more about it, because I want to keep things simple in this course. We also have a folder named Elements, and the Elements folder holds all the components we can use in our home and movie components. So these are more like visual components, and these are more like placeholders where we do the computing and do the functions and things like that. I'm going to show you this later on in the course so you know what I mean. I think that's about it, and we can get started scaffolding out our app and create our first components, and we will do that in the next movie. See you then.